Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Abhishek Himarjani. I'm a principal lead product manager or program manager at the Azure Site Recovery product team. Today, I'm here to talk to you guys about how you can enable application-aware disaster recovery for VMware, Hyper-V, or Azure virtual machines with Azure Site Recovery. Now, before we get started, I want to put out a fair disclaimer. So I've been dealing with a case of a flu all week, and I flew in from India, 24-hour flight, kind of jet-lagged. I thought I could do everything. I had a session before this as well. I've been out meeting customers, meeting partners, really excited about everything that's happening here at Ignite, not really paying attention to feeling better or recovering from my jet lag. So I started small. I thought some tea could help, mint and chamomile. I thought that was going to work on my throat. Turns out it did not. I then switched to some lozenges, and that didn't really work either. So day before yesterday, I thought I had to bring out the big guns. And that's where I got myself some really powerful syrups and started medicating myself. And turns out that didn't help very much either. So what do? You start figuring out what your contingency is going to be. You start figuring out what's your plan B. I've been waiting for Ignite whole year. We are very excited to bring product features to you. It's my first time at Ignite, and I wasn't going to miss on the opportunity. Plan A is ideal, but I needed a plan B. So what do? I reach out to the bundle of joy and energy that I have the privilege of seeing every single morning when I go into work. My boss, aka Vishal Mehrotra. So Vishal and I poured over my deck last night, going through every single slide on what I was going to cover and what I wasn't going to cover. Sure, our hairlines don't match, and he probably isn't as charming as I can be at times, but he knows the content, and he's more reliable, and he has more experience. So with my plan B in place, I knew I had it covered. We could do this. So I'm glad I'm doing it, but I do have a contingency plan in place. And isn't that what we all do? When we think about what kind of employer we want to work for, we seek out employers who offer good health and life insurance. None of us expects to fall sick, but we like to be prepared. Plan A is ideal, but always have a plan B. And yet, on all of our watches, some of the smartest minds in the industry, we allow our mission-critical workloads to go without a plan B. Just last year alone, the aviation industry has really suffered with IT systems going down. The cost has been in millions, if not billions. The loss of value to customers and to the brand cannot even be quantified. Modern paradigms of collaborative coding like GitHub have gone down because people make human errors. It's entirely possible. Or you lose power and things go down and we are not prepared. In fact, there is new research from Forrester which says that only 18% of global disaster recovery influencers feel very prepared, that they are ready for a DR. Bunch of that unpreparedness or that feeling that you're not ready for DR is a result of immature planning, out-of-date testing, or just not being ready for it or not having tried out your DR. And that's very important to pay attention to. And finally, we are at the cusp of a digital world. We are leading digital transformation. Irrespective of what business your company is in, you're actually in the digital technology business. And it's very important for your businesses to stay online 24/7. And that's what disaster recovery allows you to be able to do. Now, the very nature of the word disaster recovery has a flip side of you associating it with natural disasters. I say disaster recovery and you think Harvey. I say recovery from disaster recovery and you think Irma. But that's not the only case when you have to recover from an outage. In fact, the same research from Forrester says that 56% of disaster recovery declarations actually happen because IT systems go down. Hardware failures, software failures, things that happen in the aviation industry or things that happen at GitHub. Another 38% of outages are a result of our failures, and that's beyond your control at times. Only a 31% is because of actual natural calamities. And a few could be caused by malicious intent or cyber attacks. So when you think about disaster recovery, start thinking about how do you recover from both natural and IT disasters, and how do you make your systems resilient to be able to deal with them. Now, of course, I don't want to trivialize disaster recovery. Having a plan B for the common flu is very different from having a plan B for a disaster recovery for a massive organization. And there are some challenges in place, and we at Microsoft are very aware of those challenges. I like to think of them in 3 categories. The first one, there is always the issue with cost. Disaster recovery is expensive. You need to build out standby data centers, which is infrastructure cost. You need to provision hardware, which is another cost. You have to manage a colo or anything of that sort. You then have to buy the software, and that's licensing cost. So it's not a cheap conversation for sure. Similarly, it can be very complex. Over the journey of our IT transformation, a lot of us have adopted legacy applications, virtualized applications, non-virtualized applications. Even at Microsoft, we all have a kludgy of apps. Enabling a solution that works across all of those applications is extremely difficult. You may be virtualized on Hyper-V or have made poor choices like being virtualized on VMware. You may run in Azure, or you may be in AWS for reasons beyond my understanding. But you need a DR solution that works across all of those choices, and that's how you take away complexity. And finally, compliance will force your hand to make sure you have backup in place. Compliance will force your hand to make sure you have 99 years worth of retention on your backup. The same compliance will also force your hand to make sure you can meet your disaster recovery SLAs, usually defined by 2 terms, RPO, recovery point objective. That's the amount of data you lose. Or RTO, recovery time objective. That's the time you're out of business while you're not recovering from a DR. Compliance will force your hand to make sure you have SLAs in place. Now, what are we doing at Microsoft to make it easy for you? The first thing, with Microsoft Azure and the hyperscale compute and storage capabilities of Azure, we are taking the cost away. Only pay for compute and storage that you need. So don't build out secondary data centers. Don't get into contractual relationships trying to build out a colo. You have Azure and Elastic Cloud available in almost every geography that you care about. Use that to enable your disaster recovery with ASR or any solution that works with Azure for that matter. Similarly, we've also taken away the complexity. Most DR solutions that are available for Azure are comprehensive enough to cover disaster recovery for VMware, for Hyper-V, for non-virtualized physical servers. And in the case of Azure Site Recovery, we've even got your Azure VMs covered and use those choices available to enable disaster recovery in the cloud. And finally, Azure is the most trusted cloud. With a slew of compliance standards and audits that have validated Azure's ability to be a private and a secure cloud, you can be assured that you can meet your compliance goals when you onboard to Azure Site Recovery and Azure. So I'm going to start off by talking about how we go about doing recovery in Azure with Azure Site Recovery. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to break it up into 4 themes. The first one, I'm going to talk about how do you increase compliance with Azure Site Recovery. The case in point that I will use is Azure virtual machines. In fact, I was talking to a gentleman just before the session, and he wanted to know how Azure backup and replication differ, and I'm going to talk exactly about that. The second thing I'm going to show you, if you are a hybrid user, meaning you're running vSphere on premises, and you want to use our hyperscale Azure for DR, how we've made it exceedingly simple for you to onboard to Azure Site Recovery, and I'll give you a demo of that. I'll also show you new features. Azure is a very innovative platform. We release features every single month, and ASR is at the cusp of that innovation. And I'll show you the new features that we are announcing this week at Ignite to be able to support Azure platform features better. And finally, in the end, I'm going to have a sweet little surprise. A lot of customers have been asking for this, and I'm going to walk you through that as well. But for that, you need to stick around. So let's start off by talking about disaster recovery for Azure virtual machines. Now, a lot of us tend to think that if you move to the cloud, and we have a lot of customers who've completely started running production in Azure, you don't need any DR if you are in Azure. Well, true and not so much. While you're running in Azure, of course, you get the benefits of higher SLA and higher availability that Azure provides you. You still need to account for that accidental rm.f command that an admin may execute. You still need to account for any kind of bad patch that you roll out on your infrastructure VMs. You need to make sure that you are compliant from a DR perspective for your entire application when you run in Azure. And Azure Site Recovery for Azure virtual machines allows you to do exactly that. The other important thing to keep in consideration is Azure, by the virtue of the fact that it is a highly certified and audited cloud, Azure Site Recovery also is certified against a broad range of standards. From ISO 27018 all the way up to FedRAMP JAB, ASR meets the compliance needs that may be mandated by the industry that you operate in or by the company rules that you work under. Now, when we were thinking about disaster recovery for virtual machines, we knew that we had to solve the same three problems that I spoke to you about: cost, complexity, and a complete accurate solution that works across everything. Now, when you think about compliance specifically, what ensures that you are compliant when you run in the cloud? The only way to know that you're compliant is by testing. If you have a false sense of belief that you have DR and you've never tested it and it's gonna work, let me break it to you, it won't. If you aren't testing periodically, and I urge you to test every quarter, if not, at least every 6 months, if you aren't testing your DR plans, very likely they're not gonna work. So we needed a solution for Azure VMs that would enable no impact DR testing so that it could take away the friction from disaster recovery testing. We also needed a solution that could meet your RPO and your RTO goals, again, defined by data loss and the downtime. If your organization mandates a certain data loss in a downtime SLA, you needed to be able to meet that. And finally, the only way to know that you're meeting your SLA is if somebody is monitoring and notifying you. So we built Azure Site Recovery to address a whole bunch of compliance features. We also built it to make it cost-effective. So with Azure Site Recovery for Azure Infrastructure Virtual Machines, you need absolutely no DR infrastructure. In fact, Azure Site Recovery is the only vendor in the public cloud that can do that. So you don't need anything in your source region. You don't need anything in your target region. It's absolute infrastructure-less disaster recovery. The other important aspect is you pay what you consume. You don't have virtual machines in the target region until you absolutely perform a failover. Now, that's very powerful if you think about how much cost you can save when you're not paying for compute that's just sitting idle. And ASR allows you to do that for IaaS virtual machines. And finally, we had to make it simple. And how do you make anything simple is by minimizing how many operations you need to perform. So with ASR, and I'll show this in my demo for the first time this week, we've enabled the option of one-click replication of a virtual machine with Azure Site Recovery. We've also enriched our capability to perform a one-click failover of an entire application, which could be multiple virtual machines, with Azure Site Recovery and just one click. So with that, before I get to my demo, let's look at the anatomy of a typical highly available application in Azure. So a typical multi-tier HA app in Azure is usually going to be made up of a few different components. It's going to have availability sets. More likely than not, it's going to be using something like SQL Always On. It's also going to depend on Active Directory. And then, of course, there are going to be VMs that represent the app tier and VMs that represent the web tier. So that's what a typical app looks like. If it's a public-facing app, more than likely it also has a public IP address associated with the app. Now, how do you take this app, which I've now moved to the left of my slide, how do you take this app running in one particular Azure region, say West US, and how do you enable disaster recovery for this app? It's very simple. The recommendation for a highly available app, especially if it depends on SQL Always On, is to first use SQL Always On and Active Directory's inbuilt replication technologies to replicate your AD and to replicate your SQL. What that would end up looking like is your AD cluster on the primary side gets replicated to an AD replica in the target region of your choice. Similarly, SQL gets replicated to an async SQL replica running in the target region that you may be working with. Now, once you've done that, you simply go to the Azure Site Recovery portal with one click, enable the replication for the app. Now, when you do that, ASR recognizes that you've deployed the app with a lot of hard work. You've built virtual networks, you've built availability sets, you've provided IP addresses, and you absolutely don't want to do it again. And we understand that. So we will replicate all the metadata that's needed to recover that app on the target geo automatically. Of course, we don't want to be in God mode, so we'll give you the option to override it. But if you don't want to, we can create everything for you in the target region. Notice I don't have any compute running in the web and the app tier, because ASR does not need compute in the target geo for you to have replication and disaster recovery configured. So you can go on meeting your RPO and RTO SLAs, But that one fine day where you've rolled out a bad patch on your infrastructure VMs or for any other reason are in a IT disaster or a natural disaster situation, you simply invoke the ASR failover on the ASR recovery plan, and you can start bringing up your virtual machine in the target geo. What will end up happening is once you invoke failover, ASR will make the async replica using Azure automation. It will make it primary. It will make sure that Active Directory failover is successful. It will then start bringing up the app, and it will then bring up the web, and it will make sure everything from a network connectivity perspective, especially if you're using Azure Traffic Manager, is in place, and thumbs up, you're connected in the target region. It's as simple as that. Now I'll show you how this failover actually works and how a recovery plan actually looks like in my demo. So for that, I'm going to quickly switch to my demo screen. And I do apologize. I believe the resolution on these screens is not very conducive for folks in the back row, but we'll try to see what we can do with this. So I'm going to show you 3 different demos. The first one, I'm going to show you one-click replication. This is the brand new functionality that we're showing at Ignite this week. So I have a whole bunch of virtual machines that are deployed from the Azure Marketplace. These are VMs that are participating in that highly available SharePoint 2013 farm. So I have 9 virtual machines. And I'm going to go ahead and enable replication on one of them with just one click. So I simply click on a virtual machine. Under the Operations tab on that virtual machine, I now see a new option called Disaster Recovery in Preview. Simply click on Disaster Recovery. And ASR will tell you everything that it will create automatically for you. It will tell you the target resource group, the target availability set, the target storage account, and everything else that's needed for this VM to enable its disaster recovery resilience in that one screen. Now, if you don't like the defaults, simply override it. I'm going to stick with the default, and I can, within a matter of a click, say enable replication, and everything will start replicating from that virtual machine, from the source geo to the target geo. One other interesting thing that happens here is unlike Azure Storage, which forces your hand on what your DR pair should be. So for example, if you run in West US, Azure Storage will only allow you to go to East US. With ASR, you can choose any target Azure region within the continental boundary. So you could be in West US, and you want to replicate to Canada, that's OK. If you're in Southeast Asia, and you want to go to Korea, you can do that as well. So I'm going to stick with the default. I have VMs in East Asia. I can choose a different data center, but I'm going to stick with Southeast Asia. Just click on Enable, and I'll be done. Now, this is in the context of replicating one virtual machine at a time. Now, of course, the app is usually more complex than just one VM. The app is usually made up of multiple VMs, multiple tiers, and you want to protect it as a whole. It's usually deployed to a resource group. So how do you go about doing that? Within the Azure Site Recovery or the Recovery Services Vault, now think of the vault as the management entity where all of your backups, all of your disaster recovery, and all of your migration is configured. So the vault is your management entity. I've created one, and I call it Contoso SP Vault, SharePoint Vault. And from within this vault, I can simply say replicate. Now, when I hit replicate, all I need to do is provide the source region. In this case, I'm going from one Azure region to the other. So I just select Azure. I select East Asia, where my VMs are running. I also list the resource group. Notice I'm not having to provide inputs. That's how we try to deliver simplicity. If you've been doing things a certain way with the portal, we'll learn, and we'll try to remember so that next time you're providing lesser inputs if you have to. Of course, you can override them if they don't work for you. But in my case, since I did my prep just before the session, everything is pre-configured for me to use. I can then start selecting the virtual machines. Notice I have exactly 9 virtual machines in that resource group. These are the 9 VMs that were participating in that HA SharePoint farm, which I had deployed from the marketplace. I can then say I'm going to protect all 9 at once. I don't want to do them one at a time. Now, in the context of the protection, one additional artifact that you should try and understand is a replication policy. A replication policy is what defines the DR replication SLA for your organization. So for example, if you want things to have a consistent application consistent point every hour, you use the replication policy to specify that. If you want the ability to go back 24 hours till the time a disaster happened, you use the replication policy to define that. So I'm going to stick with the default. But one cool thing I'm going to do to show you a brand new feature that we're announcing this week is I'm going to hit Customize. Now, what the Customize is going to let me do is I can create a new policy, modify it, but the new feature that we've added is it allows you to bind virtual machines into a replication group. A replication group is multiple virtual machines that are participating in an application or an application tier and have the hard requirement that they need to snap to the same point in time. If you do that, and there is no other public cloud vendor that can actually achieve this, but if you do this, you can bind up to 8 virtual machines currently in preview, and we'll make that up to 16 to cover the universe of apps that you may be trying to protect. You can bind those virtual machines into a replication group. I'm going to simply say yes. It will ask me to name the replication group. I'm going to call it SPRG, SharePoint RG. And then I can select one or more VMs. The recommendation on the SQL SharePoint farm is to put the SQL VMs in the consistency group. You don't need all tiers to be in the same consistency group because it can have a performance impact, but you do need the SQL primary, secondary, and the witness in the consistency group. So I can just simply select SQL 0, SQL 1, and SQL witness and create my replication group. When I hit enable replication, ASR will make sure that all of these 9 VMs start replicating. The first replication will happen from Southeast Asia to East Asia or West US to Canada, whatever you've chosen. And the VMs are going to become available for testing. And they will also become available for recovery if an event were to happen. So with that, I'm going to conclude my A to A, what we call internally, to Azure demo. And I'm going to switch back to my slides. So just to recap, I showed you 3 different things. I showed you infrastructure-less DR. Specifically, you didn't deploy anything in the source. We didn't make you deploy anything in the target. You didn't have to do any setup. You simply picked a VM and you said enable, and we'll take care of that for you. I also showed you the notion of protecting a multi-tier app from a resource group with a multi-VM replication option, which I just did a demo for. And finally, I'm going to switch back and show you what the recovery of this group would have looked like. So I'm going to go back to my screen and quickly show you what a recovery plan looks like. Now notice in the schematic that I was using to show Azure to Azure or the failover of that SharePoint farm from one geo to the other, I said you have SQL that's replicating with SQL always on. I had AD that was replicating with AD replication. I also had the app and the web that was replicating with Azure Site Recovery. Now, I know that intelligence. I have made you guys aware of what the recommendation from SQL and Microsoft is, but how does the DR admin know about it? The DR admin doesn't need to know about it as long as a recovery plan has been authored the minute you complete replication. So when the replication on these VMs was completed, I created a recovery plan. Working with my app admin, I knew exactly how the recovery had to happen. So I grouped the VMs into different tiers, each tier defined by a group within the recovery plan. So sequencing across groups takes care of the fact that the first group needs to go first and then the second. Within the group, we will optimize for parallelization so that you have the best recovery time possible. But of course, you just don't fail over virtual machines. You also ensure that a few operations are carried out. Specifically, no public IP app can ever come up without updating a DNS record. Or maybe you want to configure a load balancer or punch a hole through a firewall. We have sample Azure automation runbooks available in the automation marketplace for you to use as prescriptive guidance. In my case, I have 5 different things that I'm doing after the recovery of the 4th group. Specifically, I'm updating the DNS record, configuring a public IP, configuring my load balancer, and so on and so forth. The idea is that this information is learned once, is captured in the recovery plan, and then whenever you need to perform a failover, simply come to the Azure Site Recovery portal and perform a failover. But of course, before you do the failover, you test, and you test every quarter, if not at least every 6 months. So with that, let's keep moving and talk about a few other themes. So I spoke about disaster recovery for Azure virtual machines, which allows you a whole bunch of different features: best-in-class RPO, best-in-class RTO, no DR infrastructure, the ability to orchestrate the recovery of the app and not just virtual machines. Very powerful capabilities that your applications that are running in Azure can benefit from. But we also support Azure Site Recovery for VMware or Hyper-V. So if you are using virtualized infrastructure on vSphere, you can use the exact same goodness of Azure Site Recovery to onboard your VMware virtual machines to Azure. Now, before I actually show you the brand new onboarding experience that we've been working on, I want to talk to you about how you would go about doing this for Hyper-V, because the demo that I will show you will be in the context of vSphere. Now, with Hyper-V, The way to go about setting Azure Site Recovery is that on your Hyper-V host, you install just one piece of software. It's the Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Agent. And since at Microsoft we think acronyms are so cool, we call it the MARS agent. So you install the MARS agent on the Hyper-V host. Once you've done that, your Hyper-V host becomes connected to that big blue awesome cloud called Azure. Once you've done that, any virtual machine that is endorsed by Azure and Hyper-V can be protected to the cloud. Data replication only happens in Azure storage. You don't need any VMs on the target Azure cloud. Once you're ready to perform a failover, simply use the recovery plan and perform a failover of your Windows or your Linux virtual machines to Azure. Now, the process for vSphere, while similar, is not exactly the same. For our VMware customers, we require them to install the ASR management appliance on a virtual machine in their data center. Now, one interesting thing about being in the services world is that you get to learn from data every single day. And at Microsoft, we try to do that very, very sincerely. So what we realized is that while we had made it very simple in the portal to follow the journey, step 1, step 2, step 3, our setup experience left a little to be desired. We were giving customers a setup and executable to run on a virtual machine, and we also tell them, make sure you meet prerequisites A through Z and configurations A through Z. Now, that's a lot for the customer to keep in mind. That also introduces things that cause error. So while we had the right intent in place, we felt that we could do better. So what we are doing now, and I'll show that in my demo, we are delivering the on-premises appliance that you need for Azure Site Recovery as an OVA template. You simply download the OVA template from the Azure Site Recovery portal, and vSphere admins are very comfortable deploying OVA templates as OVF images in your vSphere environment. Once you've done that, a default website lets you configure every single thing that needs to be configured. At the end of it, you're connected to Azure. So basically what ends up happening is once you've configured the appliance using the default website, you can get connected to Azure. You can then start protecting Windows and Linux virtual machines to Azure. Whenever you need to perform a failover, simply use the ASR recovery plan to recover the application as a whole, not just one VM at a time. So with that, let's quickly jump back to the demo pod and see this in action. So what I've done before this session is I already obtained the OVA from the internal environment. Of course, this is not released yet, so you probably can't download it as yet, but you should be able to starting next month. I've downloaded it, and I've installed it already, and I've launched the default IaaS website on that machine. Now, I can now walk through this wizard step by step to make sure that everything that needs to be in place for ASR to configure itself and for the components to be installed gets done in one simple step, including discovery of the vCenter environment and validation of any credentials that are needed. So I'm going to start off by saying setup connectivity. I have the option of connecting to the internet via a proxy or without a proxy. I'm going to choose without for now. I can then start selecting the network interface card on this particular appliance VM that should be used for replication traffic. Once you start replicating a virtual machine, traffic will flow through that virtual machine into the appliance and on its way to Azure. So you need to specify what network interface card is used to bind that traffic. I have 2 NICs on this VM. I'm going to select the first one, and I'm going to hit save, hit continue. I can now connect from directly within the appliance into my Azure Site Recovery Vault. Remember, Vault is that management entity where you manage your backups, DRs, and migration. So I'm going to use one of the subscriptions in a certain resource group, and the vault that I want to connect to is the Contoso SharePoint vault. I'm going to stick with the defaults. Over here as well, we'll try to remember what your preferred options are. I simply click Continue. Any third-party components, such as Power CLI, that may be needed for the appliance to work correctly can then be downloaded and installed from the wizard itself. By the way, this was one of the key areas that most customers tend to have issues, that they didn't follow the prerequisite correctly before the setup. And you can do that from within the appliance. I'm going to let it run in the background. The appliance will then validate that all configurations are in place for the discovery, for the onboarding to complete successfully. Specifically, if we need any kind of time checks on the machine so that authentication is successful, or if we need to make sure that the right IaaS configuration or the right memory and CPU is configured, we'll take care of that and validate it. If there are any actions to be taken, meaning if you've drifted your appliance VM after downloading it, we'll let you know right away so that you can correct it. Once you've done that, you can start providing your vCenter environment details. So I'm going to connect to my internal vCenter environment. I'm going to stick with the default port. I then specify a friendly name for this vCenter. I'm going to call it vCenter SP. I'm going to then type in my incredibly complex password and then provide a friendly name for the credential. At no point does your username or your password get sent to Azure. The only thing that Azure Site Recovery or Azure becomes aware of is that you have credentials that you've named a certain way so that any operations that the appliance needs to be instructed to carry out, it can be told, do them in the context of this friendly name. So I'm going to call the credentials as vCenter cred. I'll hit add, and we will validate that the credentials look OK before we allow you to move to the next step. So with my credentials validated, I am now ready to start providing credentials for my Windows and Linux virtual machines. Now, this is a little different between Hyper-V and VMware. For Hyper-V, we replicate at a host level. So we just use that Mars agent on the Hyper-V host, and we can replicate the virtual machine. On VMware, since we are coming from a VMDK, and we don't want to spend any kind of time trying to convert that VMDK to a VHD during a failover time, we replicate from within the virtual machine. That allows us a very unique ability. When we push the ASR mobility service, a super light service, onto your virtual machine, we can stream changes that your application is making to its underlying disks in real time into Azure storage, so that when you need to perform a failover, it is as simple as bringing a VM up. If we were converting it, it would take much longer. So to be able to do that, I need to provide the credentials for my Windows environment. So I'm going to choose Windows. I'm going to provide a friendly name for the creds. I'm going to call them Windows creds. Again, type in my very complex password and click add. This will make sure that the credentials are verified and they're listed. So then next time when I'm using Azure Site Recovery from the portal, it will just give me the option of, hey, do you want to use Windows cred to protect this virtual machine? Now, many customers allow us to remotely push the mobility service ourselves. So when you're doing the replication, we will automatically make sure that the VM gets the mobility service. Some customers also prefer to handle it themselves using their change management process. So they can use SCCM or any other kind of CM tool that's available in the org to en masse distribute that ASR mobility service on their VMs. Then we can just skip that step if needed. I simply click continue and finalize configuration. Everything that needs to happen for this appliance to onboard to Azure Site Recovery gets done now. Notice I didn't have to do any setup. I didn't have to create a new different VM. I just downloaded an OVA. I walked through 6 very simple steps, inline checks, make sure I don't make any mistakes. And when I go back to the Azure Site Recovery portal, I'll not only be set up and registered complete, I'll also have my vCenter discovered so I can start picking those virtual machines that I want to protect with Azure Site Recovery. Again, very powerful capability, should help you improve your onboarding and setup experiences. So if you haven't tried Azure Site Recovery, this is the best time to start doing that. Again, starts rolling out next month in all geos, and you should be seeing your getting started experience in Azure Site Recovery to reflect that new OVA download capability. So with that, I'm going to quickly jump back to my PPT and talk about what more are we doing to make sure that our disaster recovery solution for vSphere clouds is comprehensive. Now, on Hyper-V, we can support pretty much any endorsed Hyper-V endorsed operating system, Windows or Linux. On Linux, we've been making very significant investments to be able to make that statement. And I'm very proud to announce that we can now support pretty much everything that runs on vSphere and is endorsed by Azure. So a few things I want to call out for you. We are now announcing support for Windows Server 2016, but we're also announcing support for Ubuntu replication, both 14.04 and 16.04 from vSphere to Azure. We can also take Debian 7 and Debian 8. Now, also, like I said, Azure is innovating constantly, and we are at that cusp of that innovation. So any Azure platform feature, most likely than not, usually comes to ASR pretty soon. So things like managed disks, or the ability to fail over to an availability set, or being able to use large data disks, such as the 4 terabyte disk feature that Azure recently announced, all of it available for VMware customers right now. So if you go to the portal, you should be able to use all of these features. Our idea is you want to make it very comprehensive so that we can meet the needs of your application just like they need to be. I don't want to list out every single thing. I have a link on my slide. Usually our support matrix gets updated every month because that's how we release features. The support matrix should tell you what the latest support statement is. Now, one thing that comes up a lot is, most DR admins simply care about RPO and RTO, amount of data loss and the time it takes to recover. And usually they tend to ask us, as Microsoft, what's our guidance to ensure that we achieve the best data loss possible, or near zero data or zero data loss possible. So this is what I tell them. Always perform testing. If not quarterly, at least every 6 months. If there's one thing you can take away from this session, please configure your DR plans and please test them. So perform DR testing periodically. In the event of a planned interruption, meaning you know that there's going to be a power outage in your data center, or you're going to be losing an ISP link, or maybe there's going to be a hurricane threat. Before the actual event, start engaging your business continuity process. Most organizations have a business continuity program office that guides the process of how you recover from a disaster. So invoke BCP, notify users. Very, very important. If it's a planned event, take the application offline before the event. That way, you can ensure that your application is consistent. There are no in-flight transactions or any data issues. Of course, if you're dealing with an unplanned event, you skip this step and directly initiate a failover to Azure. If it's a planned event, we'll make sure you get zero data loss. If it's an unplanned event, we'll still pretty much make sure you have almost near zero data loss, because remember, we are streaming those changes in real time. So based on the bandwidth that you have configured to Azure, more likely than not, your data loss will be near zero, and we'll allow you to bring your virtual machines or your applications up to the closest point in time possible. And of course, once you're in Azure, do the validation, resume your app, switch the Azure Traffic Manager or any other kind of connectivity that you're using, and bring your businesses back online sooner instead of dealing with days and days of outages. Now, the other very important consideration is time. What time it takes to fail over is very, very crucial. Now, with Azure Site Recovery, the special fact that we replicate from within the virtual machine on vSphere, we don't need to convert, which means that we can actually fail over pretty fast. Now, I don't know about you, but we, for the most part, we're able to fail over virtual machines under 12 to 14 minutes, which is pretty darn good if you're going from vSphere to vSphere to Azure, which is a Hyper-V-based stack, and you don't have to do any conversions. But we realized we could do better. So over the last few months, our engineering team is working very, very hard to improve the time it takes to fail over. And now this is one feature you don't get to see, because there is no feature to be seen, but you get to experience it. And you get to experience it only when you perform a test or an actual recovery or an actual failover. On my slide right now, I have one VM that took 11 minutes and a second to fail over. This VM did not qualify for the faster RTO improvement that we've made. The qualification criteria is in the link on my slide, but I also have 3 VMs that did meet the criteria, and notice the failover time on them. We were able to fail over from VMware to Azure under 2 minutes. And I don't know about you guys, but I think that's pretty darn cool to be able to take a vSphere virtual machine to Azure within 2 minutes. Now, this is the 5x. Thank you. So this is the 5x RTO improvement that we are making. We are already seeing almost 50% of our failovers already going through this criteria, but the criteria is on the slide. So if you have to ensure that you get better RTO, we just require you to make sure a few prerequisites are met on your virtual machines so that they can zoom through to Azure. So what I'm going to do in my next demo is I'm going to show you all this broad coverage for different operating systems and Azure features. I'm going to just quickly show them to you, everything that we are able to support now, and then we'll get going to the final portion of my session. So on this particular vault, I'm going to call it the Contoso Distro Vault, you'll notice that I have pretty much every flavor of Windows and Linux that you can think about coming from a vSphere environment already protected to Azure. So I have Debian 7 and Debian 8, Ubuntu 14.04 and Ubuntu 16.04. I also have various flavors of Windows protected, all of them within the same vault, and I can start taking them to Azure as I need to. The other interesting thing that we've been doing is all the different platform features that we are able to support. Now, one platform feature that has been missing in Azure is the ability to take a UEFI-based virtual machine from a vSphere cloud to Azure. Azure, as some of you may know, only allows BIOS boot for virtual machines. But with ASR, we are now allowing forward direction failovers. I want to be very explicit with this. No failback yet, and we like to stick with the definition. If it's DR, it needs failback. but forward direction failover for UEFI-based virtual machines coming from a vSphere environment. So even though Azure will not natively support it as yet, we will take the EFI and convert it into BIOS at runtime during failover and still get you failed over within 14 to 15 minutes to Azure. Proof in point, a few virtual machines, Windows 2012, R2, and 16, some that have already failed over, some are in cleanup test failover pending, all can go to Azure within 15 minutes or less. Again, very powerful capability that we are announcing this week at Ignite. By the way, this works really well for migration customers that do not have the intent to fail back. Great way for them to unlock the potential of Azure and move those EFI VMs to the cloud. Now, I want to also quickly call out the different Azure features that we've started adding. So for example, in Azure, you get the option to configure things like an availability set or a managed disk on your virtual machine post-failover. So if you want to fail over your virtual machine and you don't want it to use standard disks, simply browse to that compute and network settings for that virtual machine and select yes. ASR will make sure that at the time of failover, we'll fail over to a VM that is running off of managed disks. We'll also configure availability sets for you or provide any information that you may need from an IP perspective. So if you want to reserve an IP, we can do that as well. So these are new Azure platform features that we've made sure we are adding to Azure Site Recovery. As Azure innovates, we are innovating with it. So I'm going to quickly switch back and quickly recap. So broad OS coverage coming from vSphere. On Hyper-V, everything's covered. vSphere, almost everything is covered. Pretty darn good coverage at this point of time. Azure platform features are pretty much everything is supported, including large data disks of up to 4 terabyte. Managed disk is supported. We can also now let you take UEFI virtual machines in the forward direction to Azure. Not DR, but still allowing you to fail over and migrate them to Azure with Azure Site Recovery. So before I go to the final portion of my demo, I want to quickly call out, a very strong customer success story. Yesterday, I had the privilege of, attending a session that, some of my friends at Accenture delivered with one of our architects, and they spoke about how to use Azure for disaster recovery. So James and Michael are my friends at Accenture, and I've worked very closely with them over the last 1 year as they've implemented Azure Site Recovery. And it was really humbling to know everything that they've been able to achieve with Azure Site Recovery. The things that stood out for me, and I asked James's permission to be able to use his slide in my session, they called out a 99% availability with the Azure infrastructure, with everything that they're doing with cloud-first approach. That's really starting to show. They've also managed to reduce their infrastructure costs associated with DR by 53%. They have achieved a 3-fold RPO improvement and many other advantages ever since they have moved to Azure Site Recovery. Now, James and Michael are very ideal customers. They talk to us pretty much every few weeks, and they also give us a lot of feedback. They keep us honest. So there's a lot of features that I hear from them on what they would like us to see incorporate. So I want to talk to Michael real quick because he was kind of giving me grief about this even yesterday. Michael, what's your biggest pain point with Azure Site Recovery these days?
Hello, testing. Okay, hi. I'm Mike Gavas from Accenture. Been doing DR for almost 6 years. Been using ASR for about 2 years at this point. And I think #1 challenge that we have right now is the notification and monitoring. ASR tends to be very noisy in our environment. It's very sensitive to network glitches. So we do get a lot of alerts, especially on weekends when there's any kind of network hiccups. We lose connection to CSPS for a couple minutes, and then we get flooded with all the emails saying that everything is critical, even though in reality it will recover usually on its own. So we've been working closely with Microsoft providing that feedback, because in our environments, when our support guys log in and get 500 emails and they have to actually look through them because they don't know what's legit and what isn't, we're looking for a better way, more comprehensive monitoring tool that's going to be synced with ASR.
Fantastic. So the best part about Michael is that he doesn't hold back. Even in a session, when I ask him to speak, he will tell us exactly how it is, and he keeps me very honest every week, and he keeps us very honest. And he's absolutely right. We've always erred to the side of being extra cautious with ASR. We realize that we are your DR provider, so we want to make sure that we'd rather be oversensitive, trying to find out any particular kind of glitch or any issue that may be impacting your replication, instead of being conservative. Now, what that has meant is that as customers scale, and Accenture has scaled beyond 500 VMs at this point of time, it also means that it's becoming more and more noisy for them, and they start seeing so many emails. So our alerting was largely primitive. It told you things like replication is impacted, you would get an email, and he gets an email for everything. Some days he'll screen share and show me his inbox that, why are you sending me so many emails? And I understand. So what we've been doing very closely with customers like Accenture is trying to understand the persona of a DR admin and what visualizations do they care deeply about when they go about ensuring that their DR setup is meeting the most important SLAs. And for that, I'm happy to announce a new feature in ASR, our completely overhauled dashboard experience and comprehensive monitoring that we are again showing at Ignite this week. So I don't have any slides to talk about this because I'm going to actually show it in action. So actually, let me switch back to my screen, and I'll show you a brand new portal. So this is the redesigned Recovery Services Vault dashboard. The Vault dashboard is that one place where you should expect to see any and every information related to your ability to replicate, your ability to failover, what kind of RPO you will get, will you get a good RTO, all of that information in one concise place for you to know, are you SLA ready? Now, we've done a few cool things. I like to think of them as widgets. The first widget on your top left is the replication health widget. Tells me I have 9 virtual machines. 3 are critical at this point of time. Does not make ASR look very good. All I can say, it takes a lot of effort to show something that's not green in a demo. I do understand I'm opening myself up to judgment, but I would rather you trust me than be nice to you. So 3 VMs are impacted, and I want you to be able to know that I will tell you when things are not right. 3 VMs are impacted. I also get a notification that I am not failover ready on 6 VMs. What that really means is that even though I've been telling you guys perform a test failover, and I didn't do it myself. And we tend to do that. I have not performed a successful test failover on 6 of my virtual machines in the last 1 year. And that's what the tool is telling me, that you need to perform a test failover. As soon as I perform it, I expect that count to change. I'm also being told that I have a few configuration issues, and I'm going to start zooming in for folks in the back. I have a few configuration issues. 3 of my virtual machines are missing a configuration, so we can figure out what that issue is. My subscription has insufficient quota. This is very common in Azure. As you scale your deployment, you will need the right amount of CPU and cores available to be able to do a failover. Turns out that I'm under provision at this point of time, so I should be calling Azure support to make sure they can up my limits at this point of time. Let's start trying to figure out what the real issue is, though. So notice a new error summary. If you've seen ASR before, it tells me that a locked storage account is not reachable, and currently 2 virtual machines are impacted by that. What that really means is that since ASR was replicating into a storage account, it meant please don't delete your storage account. We will try to lock it, but customers will still override it and go ahead and delete the storage account. We have nothing to do but let you know, and that's exactly what it is doing. It's telling you 2 VMs are missing a configuration because the storage account is not reachable. Let's see if I can figure out what those 2 virtual machines are, and can I even figure out what that storage account was. So I'm going to click on Lock Storage Account Not Reachable. Notice VM7 and VM8 are the 2 VMs that are missing storage accounts. That means I protected them, and I did something that was not right. Of course, now ASR also tells me you have target configurations to take care of. It needs attention. And what attention does it need? You deleted your storage account. So I'm going to click on Needs Attention. OK. Demo gods, be nice to me. I'm going to blame it on the Wi-Fi. Let's try that again. Lock storage account not reachable. VM7 and 8 need my attention. OK, I'm not going to blame it on the Wi-Fi. All right, let's keep moving. I'm going to go back to my dashboard and quickly figure out if I can figure out what that storage account is through some other visualization. Because remember, we've built a lot of them, so there should be still a way for me to figure that out. So I'm going to go back to my vault. Shouldn't have hit refresh. All right. Let's see. It tells me that 3 virtual machines are missing configuration. A few of them need my attention. 7 and 8 are needing some attention. So let's quickly first click on Y7. So this is the 3rd time we are trying this. Third time's a charm. It works. So it tells me that storage account, and it lists the subscription, and I'm going to try to read it. The storage account name was SDFAD. Apparently, we don't know how to follow naming convention. So that particular storage account is not reachable. So I was replicating into it, but I did something incorrect, and I went ahead and deleted that storage account, and now I can no longer reach it, meaning my replication is impacted, meaning my RPO is impacted, meaning the VM is critical, and ASR is telling you exactly that. Now, there's another way to browse through this journey. So I'm going to go back to the vault. My Contoso vault. And I'm going to try and see if there's a better visualization of this. As I scale beyond 9 VMs, I need something more intelligent, something more intuitive. And that intuitiveness is provided by a brand new infrastructure view. So the infrastructure view maps out all of your disaster recovery. How many vCenter servers are you using? How many infrastructure servers? Remember that appliance that I onboarded? How many of those do you have? How many virtual machines are you currently protecting for VMware? I have 9. How many storage accounts are you replicating them into? I'm using 4. 2 are impacted, and which is why that line which is saying that there is something that needs my attention, 2 VMs are impacted. So all visualizations, in addition to the error summary, light up based on what exactly is happening with your DR setup. You can drill down, figure out the storage account that's impacted, make sure you have the right auditing in place such that those things don't happen. Unfortunately, we can't create a storage account again for you, but at least we let you know things that are going incorrectly because you're not following the right processes. Going back, I also have a few other virtual machines that are currently showing as critical. So 7 and 8, remember, were showing critical because their storage account was deleted. Notice that the third virtual machine is critical, but not because of a target issue. So the target considerations are OK, meaning this virtual machine is not impacted because of a mistake that I may have made. I've not deleted the storage account, I promise. But there's something else that's going on which is preventing our ability to give it the right RPO. Let's see if we can try and figure that out. So I'm going to click on Contoso VM 9 and start drilling deeper into insights that we can unlock for you with the new monitoring experience. So now I am inside the virtual machine view. I'm going to zoom out so you can take it all in, and then I'll start zooming into separate areas. Notice within one view, we are telling you the readiness status of that VM, the replication status of that VM, what's the last available recovery point for a failover, and you now have an infrastructure view which is specific to that virtual machine. So not only is it telling you that it's replicating to storage, it tells you exactly the storage account it is replicating into. But it looks like it's still critical. And why is it critical? So I have an error summary which tells me that the process server flow control on this replication machine is being controlled, which usually, if I open up that error, will tell me that I'm pumping too much data or I don't have enough bandwidth. Now that's easy to say, but I want to see how that looks in action. So there is a new option available in that particular view which says replication charts. And I now have a very robust visualization which tells me everything. What is the churn on that VM? What is the bandwidth? Am I saturating the bandwidth enough, or am I exceeding the bandwidth available? If you exceed the laws of physics, you can't get good replication, and that's exactly what it's telling me. I'm trying to replicate into a standard storage account, but I'm pumping 9 Mbps of data. That's just crazy. I'm almost pumping 8 terabytes of data per day on that disk into Azure, and that's just not right. My bandwidth can't carry it. Azure storage in the standard format cannot carry it. But how do you know which of the disk is the culprit? Is it one particular disk? Is it all disks? You can take that exact same visualization and blow it up to actually show you the churn at a disk level. These are all insights that we are now able to capture and feed into very powerful log analytics engine and actually try to figure out more insights on what exactly is happening. So I can actually figure out that there is a certain disk which is throwing a certain amount of churn. I don't have a certain amount of bandwidth. Go and fix that. Either figure out if there's rogue churn, or that disk is a great candidate for excluding the disk. Usually happens with page file or tempdb, things that you don't need but are very chatty and you insist on taking them along without a bandwidth. Just doesn't work. And ASR will tell you that visibility from within the portal itself. So like I said, it takes a lot of effort for us to show you things are red, but we want to make sure that you can trust us when we tell you something is actually red. And that's the whole promise that we are trying to deliver with our comprehensive monitoring experience, which the team has been hard at work trying to deliver. Thank you. Thank you. So before I finish what I had to talk about, I'm going to recap the 4 themes. We spoke about increased compliance with Azure Site Recovery. For your Azure virtual machines too, I showed you a brand new scenario in the context of Azure Site Recovery. I showed you how we made it easier to onboard to Azure Site Recovery. We've provided you more features, making sure that every Azure platform feature comes to you as soon as it can. And our promise of trust to tell you things exactly how they are is increased visibility. Now, to take care of Michael's feedback, we'll also make sure that as we've enabled these insights, we'll not send him as many emails, because now he can subscribe to what needs to go to him. He can also subscribe to things that are really critical. So we will learn and we will adapt, and not everything will result in an email. He'll actually get a message digest at the end of the day which tells him that these were the things that happened while you were away if you haven't gone to the dashboard. But with all of this integrating into OMS, you should be alerting in the right place. So standard alert management tools is where you will actually be responding through an operations center for Azure Site Recovery DR visualizations. It's our promise of trust that we are trying to deliver to our customers. So with that, I'm pretty much done with what I wanted to talk about. I have some very cool announcements. I wanted to bring up 2 guest speakers who were very kind to partner with us and join us on stage. The first person I'm going to bring up is Sterling Hammer. Sterling is a product architect for Microsoft Technologies at Rackspace, and he's going to talk to us about Azure Site Recovery and what cool things they are doing with it. And after Sterling, I'm going to bring Aaron Milius on stage, who is a product solution architect from CDW, and he's going to tell us what CDW has been doing. Sterling.
Hello, everyone. Everybody hear me okay back there? Awesome. So I'm Sterling Hammer, product architect at Rackspace for Microsoft Technologies. I primarily focus on Microsoft private cloud technologies such as Hyper-V and Azure Stack. But today we're here to talk about ASR, and I'm happy to announce that we're going to support ASR on top of Hyper-V at Rackspace starting today. I actually didn't get the...
I apologize.
Is it right here?
Yeah.
OK, so I'll talk here a little bit about Rackspace. So if you're not familiar with us, we have 12 data centers worldwide. We support customers all over the world. And we also can support your workloads all the way from bare metal to hybrid to cloud. So bare metal, SQL, Windows, all that stuff that you would expect, as well as VMware and Hyper-V and all that sort of stuff, and all the way up to Azure and AWS and all those sorts of services as well. So we can support you the whole way through. So we selected Site Recovery on Hyper-V. A lot of the reasons have been discussed previously. There's significant cost involved with DR. I've worked with a lot of customers that have essentially duplicated their environments from one location to another, so it's basically double the cost. And so bringing in Azure Site Recovery allows us to be able to replicate a customer's environment into Azure. They don't pay for anything other than storage until they fail over to that. There's also a significant amount of complexity involved with this sort of stuff, and so we try and take all that out and help you in moving over to Azure and protecting your virtual machines over there. So our solution is basically that we work with you to make sure that we size and configure your firewall appropriately. It's not very hard to accidentally overload your firewall when you turn on ASR if you have a significant amount of churn and things like that. So we'll work with you to make sure that that's appropriately sized, and we'll work with you if it needs to be upgraded. We'll help you out during that process and make sure that we get everything configured right so that when we turn it on, it doesn't tip over your entire environment. Rackspace has significant bandwidth out of our data centers, so there's no issue there. We make sure that everything's available for you to be able to replicate over to Azure. We also handle the capacity tools, so we'll take your Hyper-V environment and we will make sure that it is appropriately configured. We'll run capacity planning against your virtual machines that you want to back up, and we'll provide you with all that information as well up front so that you can take a look at that later. We're also going to be offering a one-click type of solution where you'll be able to deploy that tool directly to your hosts and get a report as well as to whether or not your environment will support it. And we are using the Microsoft Hyper-V capacity planning tool for that. And on the Azure side, we will we'll provide you with our Azure support and configure your resource groups and recovery services vaults and all that sort of stuff to all of our best practices that we've decided. We will configure OMS workspace as well, enable monitoring for your environment, which will pop tickets in our system so that you get monitoring from our Azure teams as well. And we monitor our Hyper-V hosts, obviously, so you'll also receive monitoring on that end as well. So we'll configure your network security groups in your networks all to our standards. And so we've basically come up with a fully automated solution on our end to make sure that we get everything deployed and a repeatable process to make sure that when your stuff is online, it's brought online up to all the specs and standards as we've defined up front with the capacity tool, as well as consultation with you ahead of time. And we'll test all of this quarterly with the customer. Testing is hugely important, as you know, and so we'll make sure that we get all that stuff, and we'll work with you once a quarter, make sure all that's backed up. And outside of that as well, you can discuss with us, and we can work on that. And that is all I have, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Aaron.
Hey everyone, you guys are the ones that really like this stuff. You're still here. I heard a couple of the doors closing, and I hadn't even got on stage yet. I'm like, holy crap, they don't even like me. They haven't even met me, but that's okay. My name is Aaron Milius. I'm with CDW Managed Services, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our DR service. But who is CDW? You've probably heard of CDW. We sell a lot of stuff. We sell stuff that almost completely takes up the entire floor downstairs. But who is the services department inside CDW? We are no small part of CDW. In fact, our gross sales are $1.8 billion, and we have over 1,200 people that are our services division alone. We deliver services in a couple of different pillars. We deliver them in the operations side as well as in the delivery side. And I'm going to kind of show you what those look like, and then we'll highlight one of them as we talk about it. So, of course, we do maintenance services. We've got integration services. We've got partner services. We can help you work with folks like Rackspace. We work with them all the time. We work with a lot of different vendors. We can work with your warranty services. We also do aggregation, professional, and of course, we do managed services, which is the practice that I represent. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that today, because when we're talking about DR, we're talking about challenges. And one of the challenges that our customers came to us, and they said, we need a solution. So you guys deserve something. So I'm just going to set this down for a second. Pop quiz. Got some swag here. Who can tell me, and just shout it out, what percentage of businesses who have a disaster event of any kind, and we learned about 3 or 4 different kinds, not just hurricanes, what percentage will go out of business within 18 months of a disaster? 30%. Who said 80%? 80%. 80%. You're a little far away, so come on up. Got this for you. 80%, this is a Bluetooth beacon locator. 80% of businesses will go out of business because of a disaster event. So when you think about putting in disaster recovery, the first thing that comes to mind is, holy crap, that is complicated. I don't have time to take care of that. I don't have the experience. Maybe you represent teams that have just never done a full disaster recovery. Hardware can be expensive. It can be very complicated. I can't put my guys on it. You guys are busy running a business. Disaster recovery is important, but man, what about all those projects? And the development team is asking for that another thing again, and then you got to test it. If you don't test it, you're not doing DR. Let's just be real. You've got to test it. But then it changes all the time. Well, now I'm right back to where I was at the beginning. It's complicated, and frankly, I'm not used to doing things in the cloud a whole lot, and I don't have the know-how, or maybe my team hasn't quite gotten up to speed. So what we've put together with our service is, quite frankly, a turnkey solution. Our engineers will work with your engineers. We will document your entire architecture. We will develop for you what we call the playbook. And I don't call it a run book, which is a standard DR term, because there are other run books in Azure, if you know anything about that. And we didn't want to confuse that. So we got a playbook, which essentially we will help design, plan, implement, enroll, manage, monitor, and consult with you your needs in your business. You can consume this service either through your EA or through a partnership with CDW as a cloud solution provider. And yes, we are a CSP. Our CSP model includes all of your Azure costs. Yes, there are some Azure costs dealing with licensing. We roll that all in. So your monitoring, your licensing, your cold storage costs, although minimal, there are some, all included. Again, turnkey. The playbook creation. This is no small task. We are talking about hours and hours and hours and hours. Our engagement with you is on a fixed fee. No surprises if it takes 20 hours, 40 hours, 60 hours, we'll do it for you. Fixed fee. We'll do application testing at the time of implementation to verify that the stacks work the way that you want them to work. And we offer 24/7 monitoring, follow the sun support. You can call in, you can email in, you can pick up the phone and talk to somebody 24/7 and find out what's going on. We also perform quarterly testing, and when we do that testing, we take advantage of all of the features that you've seen here today, but we also, again, you have someone who is there to help you verify that the applications that were designed to fail over have actually failed over in the manner that you want. And when they don't, we'll do the moves, adds, changes, and deletes for you. We'll update your playbook and take care of it for you. We have specific engineers who are cloud certified, who are specialized in this particular practice. We selected Azure Site Recovery, and we did look at a couple of options. I mean, CDW, we have a wide portfolio of things that we look at. But we found that Azure Site Recovery was resilient, and it was important that we were able to offer that for multiple platforms because our customers use multiple platforms. We needed a small footprint agent, and we needed to have something that we could do that was non-invasive. So you could do this in a sandbox. If you need it small, if you need it large, if you want to test the whole package, no problem. We can do that for you. And although not necessarily originally designed for it, yeah, it's a migration tool. We can help you with that as well. And did I mention it was integrated with Azure? Yeah. Of course, it's integrated with Azure because we think that they're a leader in the industry. Thank you for your time. We are around to answer questions. We would love to talk with you both after the session, and I'll turn it back over to Abish.
Thank you.
Check.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sterling, and thank you, Aaron. It's been a great pleasure partnering with you guys to bring these services. So with that, I do humbly request that you provide feedback. We work very hard, brave the cold, and make it to Ignite and try to stay awake during this session. But on a serious note, your feedback is what keeps us going. It's what drives the innovation. You know, customers like Accenture that have driven with us and other customers who are doing that as well. So please do submit the feedback, and I can take any questions that you may have. Please do walk up to the mic when you have a question. Yes, sir.
Abhishek, any news on the Hyper-V evaluation tool that was promised for Q2 last year or this year?
Hyper-V assessment tool?
Yeah.
We actually are releasing it this week.
Cool.
So we had a deployment planning for VMware at first go. This week we are announcing deployment planning for Hyper-V and also cost planning for both vSphere and Hyper-V. So the same tool will let you assess vSphere, will let you assess Hyper-V. It will also tell you what your cost looks like in Azure if you were to perform a failover. Gives you even options of how often do you plan to test and things like that.
And any news on failback with managed disks?
Failback for managed disk is on track for Hyper-V later this year. vSphere failback is already supported. For Hyper-V, we are working very actively on it, and we should be able to do it this calendar year.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Can you repeat the delivery date of everything you
You know, that's a very good question. I do have a lot of my engineering managers in the audience, so they'll probably be able to tell me. But the simple answer is everything that you're seeing at Ignite, expect to see our disclosures and our blogs go out in October, latest by early November. So our product marketing team is going to work very hard trying to include all of those disclosure announcements and our blogs, and you'll start seeing them light up in your Azure Geo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm particularly interested in the integration with vSphere.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned earlier that it does the replication from within the VM.
Yes.
What could I expect in terms of when that agent or that process encounters a volume that's mounted from network storage or something? You know, I mean, that would that content be replicated as if it were local, or?
So the way we are doing this is we're actually doing a disk level replication, not a volume level replication.
Okay.
So the storage has to be presented as a disk to the virtual machine.
Okay.
But I can get into specific details if you want to talk a little bit more about it. But the simple answer is if it's presented as a disk, we'll be able to track it. If it's presented as a network attached volume, we may have challenges, but we can figure it out.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, just for additional detail, is we expect customers to fail back, and we expect them to fail back with that exact same fidelity. Usually the forward direction is never a problem, but bringing it back to that specific storage configuration can be challenging, so we tend to not support it. But we can talk a little bit afterwards to figure that out for you.
Great.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Do you have plans to be able to recover a VM into an availability set?
Already supported.
Oh, it is?
So yeah, so exactly where I specified manage disk, the option above that was availability set. So simply select yes on availability set and it will let you. If you have an existing availability set, specify that availability set. So we can create it or use what you want to work with.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. More questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, folks. I appreciate your time. There's a question, sir? Yeah, go ahead. No, we can take them. We can take them. I'm sure others can benefit from it.
So when we do our test,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.